Hi, Dusky Terry with ITC Midwest again. As we conclude the 2023 Iowa Ideas Conference, I just want to extend a sincere thank you to the Gazette for creating this forum for such a positive, high-level discussion, all of the presenters and panelists for contributing to the debate, and certainly to all of you as active participants. I hope and trust that you found the experience to be worthwhile, but please don't let this be the end of the conversation. My challenge to all of us is to take the key questions and big ideas that were generated and keep the momentum moving forward. Don't stop until we realize the future we all want for our state. On behalf of all of us at ITC Midwest, thanks again for your participation in this year's Iowa Ideas Conference, and we hope to see you all again next year.
I'm Lori Sundberg, and I'm the president of Kirkwood Community College, and we are proud to be a sponsor of this year's conference. The Iowa Ideas Conference brings educational sessions on a variety of topics to Iowans from across the state. It is a fantastic conference, and we are proud to be a part of it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our final gathering on day 2 of Iowa Ideas. I hope you've had a full 2 days of idea sharing, collaboration. An additional thanks to our presenting sponsor, ITC Midwest, our track sponsors, UFG Insurance, Inclusive ICR, ACT, our content sponsors, Cedar Rapids Bank and Trust, Cedar Rapids Metro Economic Alliance, and of course, our keynote speaker, Kirkwood Community College. A couple of quick reminders. Coverage of the conference can be found on thegazette.com. We hope that you're a subscriber, but if you're not, a special subscription offer to all Iowa Ideas attendees will be sent to you soon, along with an event survey. We hope you consider supporting the work that the local journalists at the Gazette do and the day-to-day coverage of the Gazette. We've been your independent news source for 140 years and want to continue doing that. I'm proud to introduce Vanessa Miller, our higher education reporter, and she will introduce our final keynote. Vanessa.
Thanks, Zach. I have the honor of introducing Leslie Williams. She is a veteran in the pharmaceutical industry. She's a serial entrepreneur. She grew up in Iowa. She started her academic pursuits at the University of Iowa. And today she is a very experienced biotech CEO, a member of board of directors. She's spent decades building companies, raising funds, negotiating collaborations nationally, internationally, and she's currently the founding CEO and president and director of HC Bioscience, Inc. That's a company she founded with the help of a UI researcher here who was investigating tRNA. So while she has an obviously rich and very interesting work history and winding career path, one of the things that I found most inspiring in my opportunity to interview her over the summer was her willingness to take risks and to fail and to put herself in uncomfortable places and positions, being among the only women in this very male-dominated industry for so long. So I'm just going to let her take it from here, but I personally am really looking forward to this conversation. So thanks, Leslie.
Yeah, thanks, Vanessa, and thanks for the invitation to share my story. Sometimes I'm like, why me? Why am I here? But I always say to realize one's destiny is one's obligation. And I hope I'm a visionary leader who is fearless and driven by purpose to make a difference in people's lives. So who am I and why am I here? Well, I've had the journey of a lifetime. It's not been a straight path, but it has been driven by a desire to push the boundaries and an ambition to explore all aspects of life, not just work life. So running companies is what I do. But I mentor the next generation. I love music. I love sports. I run marathons. I love the cosmos. And most importantly, my family. I put everything I have into each one of these areas. So fortunately, I have a lot of energy and, I'm passionate about a continuous learning and living. So a bit about me. I have over 25 years of industry experience. I started my industry time at Merck and Glaxo, followed and starting companies, including 18 years as a CEO of biotech companies and venture capital in the mix. And I've always centered on patients and unmet need and a love of science and curiosity and desire to learn. So my story about taking chances and experiencing lots of failures and learning a lot along the way and meeting people, sometimes positive influences, sometimes negative influences, but they're people that form who you are, and they influence the decisions you make. So my career started as a critical care nurse, as Vanessa said, at the University of Iowa, and quickly followed by Duke University. It was there that I started doing research and clinical trials on my days off. This led to me shifting to industry. As I mentioned, I got my MBA at Washington University, where I started and sold my first company. And that's when I started to really hone in on what I liked. It was taking that chance, doing something that was really out there. I knew the inefficiencies of hospitals, and I saw a problem. I went to a mathematician, I went to an anesthesiologist, and together we came up with an idea to put a software tool together to incorporate into cardiac monitors. We sold that to Hewlett-Packard. That idea, that experience was the beginning of, I think, really me fully realizing my destiny. And I went on to be part of a founding team at INO Therapeutics, where I spent 7 years learning and growing. I did so much there. I never said no. I took chances. I lobbied Capitol Hill. I launched the product in the United States. I built great teams. I launched the product in Europe. And it was then I started to realize, as the company gets bigger, you become more siloed. And again, I paused and said, what is it that I like? I like that early stage where you're developing the strategy, you're pulling the team together. It's high risk, very rewarding, and also high return. So when I was making the decision whether I wanted to stay on at INO Therapeutics, my biggest concern was I going to be as passionate? We were doing something that was truly saving lives. We could see lives being saved right before our eyes. Cyanotic, we were delivering a pulmonary vasodilator in babies that had aspirated, and when they were born, so they were not able to breathe. And we had a treatment that allowed their lungs to open up, and you could see a blue or cyanotic baby turn pink before your eyes. There's nothing more rewarding than that. And we knew we were making a difference. But when I made that decision, it was at a pivot point. It was after 7 years. The dynamics, there was still a long ways to go, but we had launched the product. It was approved, and we had revenues of 100 million. And it was time for me to go back to what really made me tick. And that's when I was offered this opportunity to explore another technology using the lung as a portal. So looking back, every time I've moved, it's been about a love. There's a fundamental foundation of love of science and an interest in unmet need for patient unmet need. So you have those fundamental foundational decision points that you don't compromise. And from there, you can go many different ways. But it's very important to leave your comfort zone. One of my philosophies is be comfortable being uncomfortable. Be bold and be yourself, be your authentic self. You've got to take chances in order to fully realize what makes you tick and what your destiny is. I became CEO of this company for the first time in 2004. As I mentioned, we were using the lung as a portal for drug delivery. And in this company, I live in Boston, and I was commuting to Ohio. My kids were very young. My husband has a busy medical practice. So sacrifice comes into, it was a big part of my journey to finding really what makes me tick. I knew for me to learn and grow, I needed to make this sacrifice. And my whole family had to be aligned with that. So it is part of the journey to finding your purpose. With this company, it was a different situation where I ended up reorganizing and recapitalizing the company. I had to make the decision to let many people go. We had about 50 people in the company, and I let over half the people go. This was the most difficult decision I've ever had to make. It's the hardest thing. And I was able to raise, with this in mind, I was able to raise money and exit for a soft landing. But you have to be able to make tough decisions and live by them. As I look at building out the teams, biotech is a team sport like none other. And success that we have in biotech is because of the team first, followed by the technology. So who you surround yourself with matters a lot. I had in this company, the chairman of my board became my mentor. I was a first-time CEO, and he became my mentor. And I realized the importance of finding mentors early in life. You can have positive mentors, but and they're fantastic, but you can also have mentors that you learn what not to do. This, my first mentor that really believed in me, gave me many pearls of many pearls of wisdom. One of the most important was trust your gut. He gave me the opportunity to make mistakes and not be fired by that. Not that you have such mistakes that you would need to be fired, but knowing he has your back at those early days, it's really important, and it's scary. You're out there, and we raised over 100 million over the course of the company, and there's a lot of responsibility that you have, and your team is counting on you. So having that mentor early on is very, very important. Again, that company, we did a reverse merger, or we soft landing, we sold that company. I went into venture capital then and helped companies with strategy, M&A, and invested in companies. What I found here was it was a great opportunity for me as an entrepreneur and a company builder to really understand the other side of the business, how decisions are made. And during this time, I realized how much I enjoyed the operation and building teams and really having that responsibility. Again, each step is that pivot point for me saying, okay, what is it that really makes me tick? So when I was in venture capital, I had a chance meeting with a scientist who was visiting Boston from Australia. And this was a unique situation where this 1 hour meeting went 5 hours. I was hooked by the potential of this technology. He had developed an immunotherapy to target CD4 T cells, which is very important as you look at autoimmune disease broadly. What I ended up going into deep due diligence on the technology. And this is a pretty bold move. People have asked me many times, weren't you scared? And I'm like, no, it didn't even enter my mind that I should be scared. I traveled to Australia several times for a weekend just to do diligence. And this was on my own dime. This was me committing myself to something that I believed in. The core technology came out of England as well at Oxford. So I then went back and forth to England to negotiate this technology. So after a year of diligence, I went all in. I founded the company. We raised a Series A of in 2011, a really tough time to raise money. I always pick the hardest times to raise money, it seems. And I moved the scientist, the professor from Australia, from Melbourne, Australia, to the United States, along with his family. That's a big commitment on my part and for him. So it's a responsibility. But I believed in what we were doing. So with this, we lived on the roller coaster developing these novel immunotherapies. Again, we raised here about $100 million over the course of the company's life, and we conducted five clinical trials. 10 years later, we were in late stage development. We were conducting our phase 2B. We were planning to go public. And we did an interim analysis, and we failed to meet our primary endpoint. it was devastating. It's one of those things, very public. People knew what we were doing, a lot of excitement around this. And there was even one of the news outlets said, Leslie Williams failure. That was the headline. So the stakes are high. What I would say is we failed to meet our primary endpoint, but we did not fail to advance the science. So we had patients, investors, clinicians all around the world counting on us. And there's so many things that influence the success and failures. And most biotech ventures do end in failure, but it doesn't make it easier when you're the CEO and for your team. But I can absolutely assure you that we did advance the science. The technology continued to be developed. We ended up doing a reverse merger and folded it into another company developing immunotherapies. So the technology lives on, and I think it will be part of a future treatment for those with autoimmune. I'm going to pause now and read something that gave me solace during this time when we made the decision to close and shut down ImmuSanté. And it's a quote by Teddy Roosevelt. "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust, sweat, and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best, in the end, the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat." This to me was how it sums up my experience at ImmuSanté. So courage, you've got to pick yourself back up. My next act, I feel like at this point, I'm bringing my lifelong learnings together. And I came back to the University of Iowa. I had reconnected with the University of Iowa, serving on the executive board at the College of Pharmacy. And from there, I connected John Darcy, who is head of innovation at the University of Iowa, had come to visit me while at ImmuSanté, but he had also asked me to be an executive in residence. And I was thrilled to be re-engaged with the University of Iowa as an EIR. So I had the opportunity, I came across and read the paper, the Nature Communications paper by Chris Ahern, Professor Chris Ahern, and John Lewick out of the University of Iowa. And I was very keen to meet Chris. We had dinner, and after digging into the science, I just had this gut. Again, it comes back to one of the lessons, trust your gut. I knew this technology had such great potential. And the timing of this, it was right before COVID. So it was the RNA revolution had not yet begun, but there was a lot of groundswell in technologies that had been developed, whether it's the siRNAs or the field broadly. But this was before all that, and I was very excited about the potential of this technology. So I was also making a decision, did I want to start another company? Or did I want to just go run a company that had already been established? So I was looking at different CEO opportunities. But what really was burning in my gut was the excitement around doing what no one has ever done. It's a revolutionary idea. I don't really get excited as much about the evolutionary ideas. I love the revolutionary ideas. So I decided, I knew if I was going to raise the kind of funds we needed, I was going to have to go all in, which was a risk as well. This was all on my own, and it was right. So I ended up coming to Iowa right before flight shut down, so February of 2020. At dinner, I just said, "This is it. I'm going all in," and the rest is history. So I worked a year with Chris. We pulled it together, invested my own money to pull the licenses together, sweat equity, and committing my belief. And now we've built HC Bioscience as this as the foundation. So at this point, what do you do next, right? So the most fun I have is surrounding yourself with great people, because I stress this, I cannot stress this enough. Biotech is a team sport, like none other, and the risks are high. So you need people that have the stomach to deal with the ups and downs, the success and failures. And no one succeeds without a great team. So, and that's a CEO's job, not only to keep the company capitalized, raise the money, but to build the team to translate the technology. So what I've seen is we've now got, we started with, I hired to our greatest, where I thought the greatest weakness was going to be, and we built it out from there. And we now have a team of 30 people. We've raised 40 million in capital, and are moving very, very, I would say, as quickly, it's the go slow to go fast, as quickly as you can in biotech. And it's not easy, and stakes are high. And we view this as our responsibility to patients first, our investors, and our team. So this tells you what I've done, but it doesn't necessarily tell you how I got here and who I am. When I think about this, I'm reminded of a book written by Paulo Coelho, the alchemist, a book I highly recommend. It's a story about a boy named Santiago who travels from his homeland in Spain to the Egyptian desert in search of a treasure buried in the pyramids. Along the way, he meets many people who direct him in the direction of his quest. No one knows what the treasure is, or if Santiago will be able to surmount the obstacles in his path. What starts out as a journey turns into the discovery of the treasure from within. This story is about transforming dreams and the importance of listening to our hearts. This is what every step, my journey, I didn't go to the pyramids, I didn't come from Spain, I came from Iowa, but each step along this path has been impacted and influenced by great people along the way that have influenced, but you cannot be afraid to go through those doors. You will find your destiny if you're not afraid to take risks and make mistakes, and you'll meet great people along the way. So what lies within us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. So that's kind of my story.
Well, I love it. Thank you for sharing it. It's obviously really inspirational. And one thing that I was wondering, I mean, you are where you are today, and it's inspirational. It's amazing. And I'm wondering if you saw this as your goal when you first kind of started down your higher education path. I mean, when you were younger and they were like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, were you like a biotech CEO, or what did you say?
Yeah, definitely not. I didn't even know what that was, probably.
Right.
So that's an interesting question. And there's two sides of this. So I knew I loved science, and I knew I loved medicine. My parents just said, I grew up in a small town in Iowa, and they said, oh, you should be a nurse. And at that time, that was kind of the path, right? I mean, I could have, in retrospect, I obviously made a pivot saying I want to be a doctor, but I didn't start with that because it just didn't even enter my mind. In retrospect, would I have done that? I'm glad I didn't. I wouldn't change anything for the world. I have more hands-on care with patients and understand so much more. I think, it is the best foundation for me doing what I do today. The other thing I would stress is I never was striving for a title. I just always wanted to do good work. I always wanted to, and I'm not afraid to make changes. I listen, I learn. I'm a lifelong learner. When you think you know everything, that's when it's over. So the title wasn't what motivated me. Although I did tell my board I was an acting CEO before I became a CEO in my first job. And I said, I'm done acting because, I'm like, okay, what is it that, what do I need more do I need to do? But you can't be afraid to ask, and push yourself for that. But it wasn't like, when I grow up, I want to be a CEO. That wasn't even, a thought. But at this point, I have 2 daughters, and, they've grown up with me. So I think it's just the world is different, and your access to information is much more readily available. So, maybe it'd be different, but I love the way it started. I wouldn't change it. Just because I've learned it's a journey of a lifetime. I've had multiple careers, and it's made me better at what I do.
Yeah. It seems like you have to be somewhat flexible as you go through your journey, but also kind of maintaining like a vision, that you're kind of pursuing all the way. And I guess you do kind of exemplify for me a visionary leader, as they say. Is that something that you do? Do you kind of often think about the bigger picture when you're making
oh my gosh yes
decisions?
Yeah, I see the end. I dream about it. I absolutely, I start with the end in mind, and I see where this could go. I see, many different paths that it can go. So it's having the big vision, and then the steps along the way in which, you can get there. And that's, when you build companies, you have to have your plan and then multiple backup plans, because, science is unforgiving. It's the cells of the body are gonna tell you. I always say, listen to the cells. It's, and the science will guide you, but you have to do good science. So that's, but I absolutely see, I'm a visionary because I see it, and it's so clear to me. It's a matter of, how do you take that vision and pull your team? And that's how you get great people. Because if you have a vision and you can sell that vision to your team, you get great people, and it allows you to raise money as well. But you have to believe that, and people can see right through if you don't really have the conviction to your, to what your story is. But I absolutely am sometimes it wakes me up. I keep a notebook by my bed because I have, I'm dreaming about it. That's a problem, but
yeah, people who do great things say that. You guys seem to have that in common. The bedside notebook.
Yeah. Or the running when I run. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that was really interesting to me, because team building seems to be a strength of yours, of course, and when you were giving your talk earlier, you mentioned something that you seemed to say quickly, as if it was obvious, but I just was interested in it. You said you hired from our weakness and built out there. I don't know. I feel like maybe some people would be like, let's just focus on what we're good at, and like hire toward our strength. What did you mean by that? And how does that play into your team building?
So as a CEO, my job is, I always say, it's to hire people better than me. And then, that makes us all better, but it's also hire to, in what I do, in a biotech company, you look at, I always call them pillars of expertise. So we're developing tRNA, which is a nucleic acid, and an informational drug. And the key thing is, this drug will work if we can get it to the cell of interest. So therein lies delivery. How do you get the drug to the cell of interest? So I knew that, okay, we've got this informational drug. I can continue to develop that, but I got to get it to the right organ and cell. So I need a delivery expertise. So that was kind of the greatest weakness, I thought, was going to be delivery. How do we get this nucleic acid to the target tissue? And so, it's easy to hire the people because sometimes that your weakness is going to be, it's in a completely different field, which was the case, because delivery, whether you use nanoparticles or viral vectors or conjugates, there are all these different types of expertise. So it was a matter of then having the vision of where we're going to start. We're going to start here. So I want, someone with this expertise, and then I can build from underneath them. So that was my first hire after I'd raised the money, was to that gap that I thought we would have. And then we built out from there the biology team and what have you, and computational team. So I built a computational team, and people were asking me, why do you need a computational team? And it's the data is so there's so much data that we are collecting that if you to truly understand the genomic profiling and all the data that we're collecting, you have to have computational biologists as part of your team. So I have, again, these pillars of expertise that I had the vision. We needed that out of the blocks, and that has been to our benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that it's really interesting to hear you talk about building your team and how you are identifying holes and gaps and sort of problem solving, because that seems to be kind of the bigger picture thing too, that you look out in the world and say, where are the gaps, and what are the problems that need to be solved, and then you address them, and then you continue to do that as you build a team, that you look for gaps and holes and problems to solve within, as you build out a team and a strategy. Am I right in reading
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But then you anticipate, where is this going to be in 10 years, in 5 years? So, having these having these pillars of expertise and then integrating them is truly the future is going to be in, at least what I'm doing now is really going to be in the integration, it's AI, but it's also, how do we direct informational drugs to tissue? So it's going to be this extrahepatic delivery, but it's understanding where the field is and where the next frontier is. We're at the edge, we're at the frontier as it relates to RNA-based therapeutics. We are the newest, which is so exciting. So this is the other thing that doesn't scare me, it scares a lot of people, is we're doing what no one has ever done. So when we start out, you don't have animal models, you don't have any of the assays that we need. We had to develop everything in-house because the tools weren't there. That scares a lot of people away. It's easier to just do another checkpoint inhibitor, or and I'm not downplaying that. There's need, but that's not where I'm best suited. I'm best suited where I love the big idea. I love the revolutionary. Tell me I can't do it and watch me do it is kind of where I kind of get excited, as long as the science supports it. So, and I think some people can be so encumbered by what they know, they don't realize what they don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm curious, were you like that as a kid? Were you like fine failing? Some kids just have a hard time with it. Were you like, oh, I'm an experimenter, I'm gonna fall down, it's fine, I'm gonna keep going? I mean, or were these like skills you developed over time?
I think it's always been me.
Yeah.
And I think it's always been, I kind of pushed limits. I wasn't afraid to fail. And I think it's important to fail early as kids. Mm-hmm. You can't always get the A, you can't always get the trophy, you can't always get all that. You just got to learn how to, because if you you say, okay, I give up, you'll never get to what your destiny could have been. So, I mean, you've got to fail early and have the courage to get back up.
Right. Yeah. I mean, do you feel like that's something I don't know. I mean, I'm not asking you to like talk about our educational system as a whole, but is that something you'd like to see sort of educators capitalizing on more, or any sort of change at the training level as people are coming up into the possibility of a STEM field or a STEM career?
As far as failure and
Failure
I
and experimenting.
I think we have to embrace failed experiments or failure in the educational system. I think trends are seeming to be more away from grades and all. It just seems like things are just getting we're becoming complacent and not pushing as hard as we could. I don't want to be controversial, but I just think that there's going to be people fit in different areas, and you got to work hard for it. You can't just have things handed to you. And if you work hard, I think reward should come if it's deserved, but not everybody gets the trophy. I mean, I think it's absolutely critical, I think, for the future of the country and, more broadly. I just, maybe I'm old school, but that's kind of where I know they're getting away from SATs and some of the tests are geared towards different socioeconomic, just because some people have the ability to go and get go through courses, and so there is there is inequality there, and I think it's going to be hard to truly harmonize or standardize that. But I think I think we should be looking at this next generation as we have to make sure they can handle the hard times. They've had hard times, but it's been, and I'm going to step in. I'm going to say, the whole COVID and everything is remote. I think that's been absolutely devastating for people. And I think, how do you train the next generation? How do you ensure that interaction? The world is about human interaction. It's not just on your phone or on a computer. And I think we realize we can do a lot remotely, but I think in what I do, everyone comes into the office every day, just because it's that spontaneous conversation. How do you mentor? And really it's I think there's a lot of learning that's missed by not having those interactions. But I kind of went off on a tangent there.
No. I mean, I had been thinking about kind of how your career path involved sort of going into places and doing the things, and how important like experiential learning and on the job training is in sort of shaping your career path and what you are wanting to do, as you go. So I definitely think that's one of the things. And I wanted to ask, in terms of everybody discussing STEM and women in STEM, what was that like for you when you first dipped your toe into that field? Were you alone there, or
So my first CEO job, that was in 2004. There were less than 5% women CEOs. So it was it's still lonely, but it was very very few women. And in fact, I did pull up some statistics. So in 2004, there were less than 5% women in the role. The entire C-suite was dominated by men, as well as the board of directors. And the chairman of my board, as I mentioned, he became my mentor, and he was incredible. I did bring on a woman board member when I within the second year of me running the company. So I think that that helped, but it was tough. What we know is that at least the tide is changing, but it's still not where it should be. If you remember the Sheryl Sandberg, the COO of Facebook 12 years ago noted that there were not enough women at the table. 2 years later, she came out with the book Lean In. And it was basically a wake-up call to acknowledge the problem. So that was a long time after I had been in that role. And I can tell you, the experience was, it's really, I didn't think it was fine for me. I had great mentor and support with my board, but I know you know, you're not taking, you know, the questions you're asked are sometimes different. They ask you more about risk and risk mitigation versus opportunity. I mean, they're just kind of fundamental changes and differences in questions, but it's beginning to change at this point. So what I have is women make up half the employees in biotech. Only a third are on the executive teams, and 15% today are women. So we've made strides from less than 5 to 15, but that's, you know, we've got a long ways to go. In venture capital, where obviously private funds come from, it's about 90 to 95% men. So what I would say is there's a long ways to go as you look at, you know, the field and how do you ensure diversity across the board. The glass ceiling, you know, it's not broken. It's been shattered a million times, but we certainly, you know, can make a lot more inroads as we look at, you know, encouraging women in these leadership roles. And on boards, there's improvement, I think, in boards right now. About a quarter of the boards have women, and this continues to increase. And we know that diversity on the board makes companies better. You know, and a lot has been written on this. 41% higher revenue, and in the top quartile in profitability if there's women on the board. I'd say women just need a chance. You know, I think one of the things that I put this on the women, you have to just be open to saying, you know, I'm interested in the position. Don't say, well, I don't have. What I tend to see is women sometimes say, well, all the things they don't have instead of what they do have. So, and, you know, men often say, oh, I can do this, this, and this. So it's just how you position yourself. And I've really been a stickler on trying to help people reframe, you know, and position themselves.
Yeah. You were kind of answering one of my questions there, but my question is why that is. Is it just that it's just the way it's always been, that there have been more men in these roles and in these positions, and there is some fear involved into jumping into an unfamiliar space? But yeah, do you have any thoughts about why it's been male dominated, that specific sector?
Just the executive sector as well as venture capital.
Yeah,
it's kind of, you know, there has been a sea change. So I'm going to caveat this by saying there's been a sea change. Men do support women, but it's like you've got it's like who you know, who you hang out with, right? And it starts with that, and it's that network that, you know, it's a tight network that, you know, they help each other, but, you know, women aren't always in there. And if you are, then, you know, it's you know, there are just fewer and fewer women in the groups. Now that's changing in a very positive way. And that's why we have within the women executives, and now they're doing this in venture capital as well, is we have what's called the biotech CEO sisterhood, where it's women CEOs. And this came about just as a way for women CEOs to get together and just, you know, have a retreat. But then it turned into this phenomenal movement. And it's just been phenomenal. And the whole objective of this is it's for those of us that are in and have, you know, been in the executive role. It's to help that next, you know, help our colleagues in any way we can, but it's to also help the next generation. So it's really about sponsorship and support, and just having someone to sound ideas off in a safe environment. And it's been absolutely, it is a movement. And we have retreats, but we also have a Slack channel where we also share ideas and challenges, and sponsor if we have people that we want to support in different roles and promotions. It's a way for us to really share that wealth of information to as many people as we can, and bring up that next generation.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. You keep anticipating my questions as they come into my head about like, what else do you do to support each other, and how important is that? So I love it. I wanted to ask a little bit about your current project, and the researcher who you got involved in, and correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't necessarily see this as like a huge company. I mean, like, talk about your vision for that and how you had to sort of a partner.
Yeah. So Chris and I were sitting at dinner, and so I had read the paper. I asked a few questions, and he was excited to share, the data and what the some of the results were. And I just said, Chris, this is a company. If this works, it's a company. And I'll never forget. He said, really? And I'm like, yeah, I see. I mean, I saw it. I still see it clearly where this could go, but I saw it so clearly that if we could, I mean, there's a lot of risk, right? Because you have to get it out of the academic lab. You have to repeat those experiments, and then you have to do this at a completely different level that meets the regulatory requirements, and obviously with an eye towards you're going to inject this into a patient. So, but I saw that, and knowing that, if this works, we just have to, that's what I do. I can take a technology and translate it. Mm-hmm. It's not a straight path, but it was a matter of then kind of saying, well, this vision could be, this is what this could do. We have to, build this out. And it was kind of what more the idea, the spark. I already saw where this could go. How we got there, it took about a year to put together, but it was like, okay, I think I can get this done. And then what I did is I talked to a bunch of other people just to say, okay, am I crazy? So you kind of go and you talk to some experts and make sure that, if this works, conceptually, I mean, that's what biotech is. You have an idea and you just have to translate it, but it's high risk. Mm-hmm. But it's also high reward. And ultimately what I see is, the way, the unique aspect of this technology is, it has the potential to address so many diseases of which that are currently undruggable, and there are no treatments out there. So we're initially targeting what we call nonsense mutations, or where you have diseases where you have truncated protein. So there's about 10 to 15% of all disease is driven by nonsense mutations. And there are, some gene therapies that target a certain gene, but this has the potential to target, mutations in a gene agnostic way. So it's extremely powerful as a platform. And it's addressing diseases of which there's nothing out there. Mm-hmm. And cancer, and including cancer and cancer types where there are mutations in tumor suppressor genes where they're undruggable targets. There are different drugs that address different aspects of pathways, but this goes to basically the foundational mutation. So if we could restore that, rescue that, it would be game changing, which is what we're excited about. But, that kind of granularity came, you kind of some key disease areas where it's very black and white that this should work. But then looking at the potential of this is where we brought our computational, I brought my colleague that's a computational scientist in, and it's very exciting. And I think it is, a huge responsibility for us to bring this technology forward. And I look at it as going slow to go fast. You can't, science is unforgiving. So you have to listen to what the science is telling you and take, very, you have to take steps. You have to know where to take risks too. You have to know where to, skip a couple of steps if it makes sense. And if you have to go backwards, you go backwards. But that comes back from, I've done this a few times. So you kind of know, what you need to do. And then it's a matter of bringing the right team together, which I'm very excited about our team, like I said.
Yeah.
But anyway.
No, that's awesome. I mean, it does feel like, hindsight's 2020, but do you feel like you are in the middle of a risk sort of right now, like one that you'll look back on in years, and because you don't know sort of the end result of what you're doing right now? I mean, does it feel like you're in the middle of it still?
Oh yeah, it's risky until it's not.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's no, it's risky, but I come back to, what really makes me tick. It's patience. And we had give you an example. So this has the potential to address Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. So we got a call from a young boy who has Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. He has a Make-A-Wish Foundation. His number one wish, not to go to Disney, but to be a scientist at HC Bioscience for one day.
Wow.
If that doesn't change, your perspective, it is. We were setting that up, and he was able to get into a clinical trial, so he didn't come. But we're waiting for him maybe next year. But that is really, if that doesn't give you that, motivation, it's a huge responsibility. And this comes back to my nursing background and taking care of patients. I deeply feel this, and it's not just the patient; it's the people, the family and friends that are impacted by, someone with some of these diseases. So, yes, it's risky, but it is, right now we're mitigating risk every single day by the experiments that we're doing. And we're, it's ticking away, one hurdle goes away, we have another hurdle, but that's biotech. It's a roller coaster, and you have to have the stomach for it.
Yeah. Talking about risk and failure and all of that. I mean, is there anything that you, looking back, would have done differently? Or do you feel like it's all part of the path? Or were you like, yeah, I wouldn't have done that or changed this here and there?
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I've thought about that, and what I've come to realize, I love the thing that I wish wouldn't have happened.
Mm-hmm.
So you just got to embrace, I wish we wouldn't have failed in the other trial, but I love that because I learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
so I wouldn't change, I guess I wouldn't change anything, because it's my journey. And
mm-hmm.
it makes, it's kind of, you can cut corners, but there's a reason for everything in my mind.
Yeah, that's great. One last question before Zach comes in. Is there if people are going to leave this session, what is like the one thing you hope sticks with them?
Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa, and thank you, Leslie. This is winding down our time for Iowa Ideas. I appreciate both of your thoughts. And to attendees, the session replays will be made available early next week of all of the different sessions. And there will be additional coverage coming up in the Gazette and on Gazette Online. We appreciate your support of Iowa Ideas and the support of the Gazette. For those who aren't subscribers, as I mentioned at the kickoff, we will be sending out a special subscription offer to you. And we will be continuing to cover the topics that we've been talking about the past couple days throughout the year. And also, please keep an eye out for the event survey because while it may feel quick, that helps us with planning, and we'll be starting to plan for next year starting in about a week. And so this helps us grow, gives us the topics that we want to include next year and map out the course of things that we should be thinking about. The Whova access will remain open for the next month, so you can check the directory and still connect and send messages to each other. And so that'll be another place that you can follow up with folks. On behalf of the entire Gazette team, and it takes the entire Gazette team to pull off an event this big, we appreciate it and thank you for attending, and have a great afternoon. Thank you.